Hello, sociology scholars. Mrs. Olson here. Today's lesson is titled Family and Marriage in the United States, and it falls within our unit of the same name, Family and Marriage. So our learning target reads that you will be able to understand how family and marriage reflect certain social and cultural norms in the United States. So we're going to focus on three topics. The first one is going to be romantic love. The second one is going to be divorce. And then the third one is family violence. All three of those topics are a reflection of certain social and cultural norms that we have in the United States. Now, as always, it's always a good reminder to take notes so that you can use them on the assignment that follows. So we're going to begin with romantic love and marriage. Now, there was a poll that was given to the American public sometime in the 2010s, and one of the factors or reasons for getting married that was identified by married people and also single people is love. They said that love was the most important reason for a couple to be married. So just to provide some statistics to that poll, 84% of unmarried people answered that this was the most important reason to be married, while 93% of married people answered that love was the most important reason to be married. Okay, so we're going to kind of take a step back for just a moment and put into perspective the American institution of marriage and look at it from historic points of view, and then also how other cultures in the world view the institution of marriage. That is, that marriage was not always defined by love. It was actually viewed as a means of securing property and maintaining social position. So families that had money or didn't have money, that actually entered into the reasons for why two people should be joined in holy matrimony, not exactly love. Okay, so if we look at the British feudal aristocracy, so think prince, princesses, lords and ladies, romantic love was actually pursued outside of marriage. So two people might be married, but it was an arranged marriage by their families. And if they had romantic interests, it was people kind of looked the other way, if you will, if you pursued love outside of marriage. Okay, now in ancient Japan, love was actually considered a barrier to the serious business of marriage, which was arranged by their parents, which is similar to the way that the fundamentalist Hindus of India today arrange marriages. So the parents and relatives within this group in India, they're the ones that find suitable mates for two people that are at marrying age. A little bit more on this topic on this next page, in that the criteria, this is the fundamentalist Hindus of India today, the criteria for mate selection, it includes class, so which social class that you are born into, how much money a family has, their reputation, and then also what the man and the woman, in this case, what they look like and how they would be suitable for each other. Now, back to the U.S. and the institution of marriage today. The note reads that 31% of married people and 30% of single people identified financial stability as an important factor. So it wasn't the most important factor for getting married, but it was a factor for how people view the institution of marriage. Okay, this note reads that one of the strongest motivations for marriage is conformity. So this may go against what some of you believe as far as what makes a relationship work. I think there is the notion out there with many young people in that opposites attract. Well, in psychological studies and also in a sociological research, that actually is just, it's one of those things that science doesn't back up. Opposites don't attract, nor do they stay together necessarily. So the more similar that people are, the more attracted they are to that mate, and the longer that they actually stay together. Okay. More information. Marriage rates in the United States are actually going down. To back that up, in 2010, barely half of all adults were married. And let's talk about the mindset of some parents that have of marriageable age children today. Some parents expect, worry, and pressure their adult children to marry. Okay. Whoops. I'm in the way. There we go. Okay. Research suggests that a couple must build a relationship that goes beyond romantic love in order for a marriage to last. So, at the beginning of a young person's relationship, there are definitely factors that attract one to the other, but there has to be more that the relationship is built on than that initial attraction. So here's the definition of marriage rate. It is defined as the number of marriages per year for every 1,000 members of the population, okay? So I'm going to share some statistics with you regarding the marriage rate. The marriage rate has fluctuated in the US since 1940. And then following World War II, the marriage rate peaked to 16. A little bit of history with that is that when soldiers came home from World War II, which ended in 1945, a lot of couples had delayed marriage until after the war. So when soldiers came home from war, there was an increase in marriages. And then since that time, that marriage rate has fallen by more than 50%. So I've got an infographic for us to look at just for a minute, and it's titled Marriage and Divorce in the U.S., a look at marriage and divorce according to a study by the U.S. Census Bureau. So we've got a few categories here. They have divided it by men and women. This category is married and divorced women by looking at states, and then married and divorced men. So if you want to take a closer look at this infographic, go ahead. You're just going to have to pause it, and then we will be talking in just a little bit. Okay, so I am going to go to the next slide, and this one shows you what we were talking about just a minute ago with the marriage rate at 16 or a little bit above 16 per 1,000. So at the end of World War II, all the soldiers came home and marriage rates exploded. And then we are going to be talking about divorce in a second. So if it helps you to go backwards in the video to look at this slide again when we're talking about divorce, this graph is a good one to be able to look at accurate statistics, and this was pulled from the U.S. Census Bureau too. Okay, so divorce in the United States. The definition of the divorce rate is very similar to the marriage rate in that the number of divorces per year, it is the number of divorces per year for every 1,000 members of the population. So the divorce rate more than doubled from 1960 to 1981. So let's talk about that for just. So there we go. The causes of divorce. the younger that people are when they're married, the higher the chances for divorce, okay? It says the later the age upon marriage, the lower the chance for divorce. The second cause of divorce is the years the partners have been married. Now, the longer the marriage, the lower the chance for divorce. You might be seeing a common thread here with these details. And then the last one for causes of divorce is the nature and quality of the relationship of the couple. The more respect and flexibility there is or there are between the partners, the lower the chance for divorce. Now, sociologists focus on 4 main factors when they are studying divorce. The first one reads that the divorce rate rises when times are good and when times are not so good. And we're talking about the money that people make, what they're able to buy. When the times are not so good, then the divorce rate goes down. Here's why. More people are likely to make changes and take chances, like leaving their spouse, when they have the ability to be able to support themselves, when times are good economically. When they're worried about basic survival, like being able to pay their bills, feed themselves and or their children, then those divorce rates go down. The rise of the divorce rate after 1960. So let's talk about that for a second. As the baby boomers matured, so the baby boomers were born after 1945. They say that the explosion of babies born in the United States from 1945 to about 1960, 1965 is the baby boom, because all of those soldiers were coming home from the war. So as those baby boomers matured, hence around 1960 and then a little bit later, their ideas of divorce, it didn't have the same stigma as earlier generations did. And the third one is women are working more now than in the past. So more women are financially independent and they don't need men to fulfill that aspect of being able to live. And our fourth one says that American values and attitudes are changing. Society is more forgiving about people getting divorced and then remarried. For example, women used to be punished by their social circle, even by their family, if they're the ones who chose to leave the marriage, i.e. get divorced, okay? So here is just a movie poster that kind of reinforces the ideas of getting a divorce, 1960s. And we are going to go into the last section here by looking at the future of marriage. And the statistic is that the average of a first marriage is actually rising. The later that people marry, the less likely they are to get divorced. Here's another one. The average age of the population in the US is increasing as baby boomers get older. So the baby boomers are now starting to be grandmas and grandpas, so they're getting removed from the age bracket that produces the highest divorce rates, okay? So they've kind of already been through that period in their life, so they're either staying married or they've already been divorced. And then couples are having fewer children and children that are spaced further apart. So not only are couples not having 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, more children in their marriage, the number of children that they are having are further apart in their age range. So maybe they're 3, 4 years apart instead of being maybe 10 months and 18 months apart. Okay, and so this reduces pressure in a marriage. Okay. Oh, there's the babies. Okay, we're going to end the video lesson with a section on family violence. And first we're going to talk about statistics. So 3.3 million, there are 3.3 million reports of child abuse per year. And within those 3.3 million reports, 6 million children are involved. Okay, that's what that looks like. Another piece of information to wrap our heads around family violence, more than a third of women and a quarter of men have experienced rape or physical violence at the hands of an intimate partner. I'm going to move this. And 2 million older Americans suffer from some form of physical or psychological abuse or neglect each year. So it isn't just child abuse, it isn't just domestic violence, and it isn't just the third one. All of these constitute or fall underneath the category of family violence. Okay, and then this one says that many abuse cases, they go unreported per year. Okay, so once again, here's another infographic. Now this one is just about child abuse. So if you want to look at the statistics further, go ahead and pause it. I'm going to go on to the next slide. Okay, so with spousal abuse, women are not the only victims of spousal abuse. In fact, husband abuse does occur, and it's often overlooked when researchers are studying physical abuse. Wives do abuse their husbands, and abuse, I'm going to have to change that, there's a typo there. Abuse is the most common problem. Sorry, not the most. It is a common problem in same-sex relationships. So that's one factor that we want to learn about when we're looking at family violence, that it doesn't just happen with heterosexual couples, it does happen with same-sex relationships. Okay. And going into our last one here is verbal and physical abuse. So psychologists who look at, remember, society from an individual point of view or problems or behavior, they report that feelings of self-hate and worthlessness can be as damaging as physical wounds. Neglect is another type of abuse that affects millions of children. So it may not be physical abuse that is happening to abused children. Neglect can look like a couple of different things. The lack of basic necessities, food, water, clean and safe place to live, warm place to live, access to medicine. If kids don't get that, that can be considered neglect, and then the authorities may step in to try to help that family. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this video lesson that is looking at family and marriage in the United States. And of course, with all of this, we want to try to make connections to see how this information reflects certain social and cultural norms in the US. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.